Hello, my name is Andrew Thake. Welcome to our Minds and Money 5 at 5 show, which today is sponsored by Kodiak Copper, Element 29 Resources, Blue Lagoon Resources and Crown William Mining, and is brought to you in association with Resource Global Network. For those of you attending 5 at 5 for the first time, the aim of 5 at 5, 5 guests at 5 p.m. is to maintain engagement between investors and miners through a lively interactive format whilst we wait the return of physical events. If you have any announcements before we start, to make the sessions as interactive as possible, please have your video switched on. To ask a question, you can either submit them via the chat function. You'll see I've put in some welcome remarks in the chat function at the bottom of the screen, or you can wave your hand, your invite participant's hand. We can unmute you and you can ask your question live. Today, we've got a great lineup of guests. We have Claudia Tonquist, President and CEO of Kodiak Copper, Brian Booth, President and CEO of Element 29 Resources, Andrew Schweitzer, CEO of Crown William Mining, Ranovic, President and CEO of Blue Lagoon Resources, and Claude Biget, private investor and newsletter writer. So without further ado, Claude, we've got 4 great projects we're going to hear from later on today. What interests you about some of those projects?
Well, the first thing is that these companies are on gold properties and copper properties. And the first thing you have to know is that when you invest, you better be in a bull market. And we are definitely in a bull market for gold. We're definitely in a bull market for copper. We're having now some corrections. So it's in the bull market, we're supposed to buy the dip. So that's key for me.
And in terms of, I guess, like, you know, as a investor, you've obviously been in the business for sort of like so many years. How does this sort of super cycle compare with sort of previous ones that you've been in?
Well, that's why investing is tough. There are some things which are similar, and then there are always these little differences that catch you off guard. Mm-hmm. So, for example, on the gold market, which I am more specialized in, I turned very bullish at the end of December 2015. For me, that was the start of a huge bull market after a devastating bear market where most of the junior gold mines were down 92%. So, I mean, that was just pretty unusual for a start. And then, so normally in a bull market, you have corrections just to scare people off. But we've had time after time corrections which went much deeper and lasted longer than the usual bull market. So just last March, you saw one other correction, which was about 44% in the gold miners, in the junior gold miners. That's pretty huge. So today you see gold is down $100 for last week or so. So will it be the same? In other terms, are we going to have a fourth huge correction, or since we've had severe corrections, so severe corrections until now, maybe this time round it's going to be a much lighter correction, and maybe it's practically over. Anyway, there's no way we can know for sure. The only thing that you have to know is that if you want to make money, you got to be invested. And as I just said, market is correcting, so it's buying time. You buy the dip.
Definitely. Well, look, thank you very much for that sort of like summary. And so let's move on to our first mining update of the show. We'll also be hearing from Claude throughout the show regularly. So our first mining update is Claudia Tonquist, formerly general manager at Rio Tinto, and whilst with Rio Tinto, she worked with their copper and diamond operations. She also held the position of executive vice president, business development for the streaming company Sandstorm Gold, director of Silver One Resources, and former director of Kennedy Diamonds, leading the $170 million sale of the company to Mountain Province as chair of the special committee of the board. Claudia is now president and CEO of Kodiak Copper. Claudia, can you give us an update of what Kodiak Copper are doing?
Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction. Very happy to give you an update. Kodiak is a copper gold porphyry exploration company in North America. We had a fantastic year 2020, where we were fortunate to make a discovery that was a real game changer for the company. It set us up for a big financial private placement, and we have now a much larger drill program going on for this year, fully funded. That should make this year an equally exciting one. Before I dive into our project MPD, where we made the discovery, maybe a couple of words about management. First and foremost, Kodiak's founder and chairman is Chris Taylor, who many of you probably know from our sister company, Great Bear, major gold discovery. Chris is a fantastic creative geologist, big part of our work. He leads our technical work. And I should also mention we are part of the discovery group led by John Robbins, also mining entrepreneur with a fantastic track record. And being part of this strong group is very valuable for Kodiak. It gives us fantastic access to technical expertise, capital markets, contacts, and so on. So feeling very fortunate to be part of discovery. Now, a couple of words about our MPD project, where we made last year's discovery and are busy drilling at the moment. MPD is located in southern British Columbia, a very favorable location to work in, both in terms of low-cost exploration, also future economics for a potential mine, and also from an ESG perspective, it's a really good place to work. We are in a very established mining region. The project is accessible year-round, literally 5 minutes off the highway. You turn onto a logging road, drive for a couple of minutes, and you're at our drill pad. And it's got electricity, water, it's got everything you need. We have a lot of support from First Nations in the area, so it's really a fantastic place to work. We started drilling at MPD in late 2019, and we're fortunate to make a discovery right with our first very small maiden drill program. And last year in summer, we then followed up that small drill program with a slightly bigger one and drilled into a high-grade porphyry center. And that was the game changer, the transformative event I referred to before. Our share price jumped from 50 cents to over $3. We raised $12.7 million. Tech Resources became a major shareholder. And that really set us up now for a very exciting year in 2021. We have a drill program of up to 30,000 meters planned. Drills are turning. We started in March, already good way in. It's going very well. We came out with an update just a couple of weeks ago. We are expecting the first set of results in late June. So that's only 2 or 3 weeks away. So that will be very exciting. And just today we announced that we have added a second drill rig. So we are accelerating the drill program and will be generating lots of exploration news, hopefully more high-grade discoveries throughout the year. It'll be a very exciting, very news-rich year for our investors. So that's in a very, very small nutshell what Kodiak is about. I've kept it short so as to leave time for some questions.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, I think that first of all, I'm going to sort of go to Claude. I mean, Claude, do you have a question for Claudia?
Well, first I have a little toast to do to Claudia. This is my little mug from Munich, because a couple of years ago I met Claudia at the biggest Munich mining show, and just to tell you that she's a good marketer, she's not afraid of jet lag, and she goes where investors are, so that's good. And her husband, I knew her husband before I knew her. He's a very successful stockbroker, but I told Claudia she would do better than her husband. And Claudia, congratulations, you did it. So the stock went ballistic, so that was fantastic. It has corrected quite a lot, so it's probably interesting to go back in it. Could you give us a little more color on what you can achieve? Because 30,000 meters of drilling, that's a lot of drilling, so you can probably have some very interesting results. So what are you trying to achieve with that?
Well, we made a discovery last year, discovered a high-grade center, which is a very important part of a porphyry system, and really only drilled a very small part of it last year. We made our high-grade discovery with hole number 4 out of 10 of a small drill program, and the gate zone, as it is called now, has an anomaly of more than 1 kilometer in length, of which we drilled last year around about 100 meters. So 90% untested, and that's what we're busy drilling now. So we are working our way systematically through the almost 1 kilometer of anomaly to explore the gate zone further and build on our high-grade discovery. And then we have other target areas as well, very similar on the project. One called Dillard, which is next door, has...
Could you tell our listeners what type of grades you're hitting and what type of breadth, because that's quite impressive.
Our discovery hole was over 0.5 kilometer, 535 meters of 0.76% copper equivalent. And just to put that into perspective, the neighboring mine, Copper Mountain, their reserve grade is 0.24% copper. So we drilled round about 3 times the grade that's mined next door in this discovery hole. And we've now, sort of with the results we have to date, shown already some size of like 300 meters in width, 800 meters down of this high-grade zone. So we're starting to see some size, but as I said, 90% untested, and we're busy drilling it out further.
Great.
I've got a kind of question here. Is I think you acquired the Axe Copper Gold property back in April. Any future acquisitions in the pipeline? And I guess the follow-up for that is, would you only restrict yourselves to acquisitions or growth in North America?
Well, we picked up Axe because it's a very interesting story. It's an adjacent property to MPD, was drilled in the past, but with a very different targeting methodology than what we did successfully at MPD next door. And so with what we know now from MPD, we saw some very prospective, interesting targets at Axe that were completely overlooked in the past. So that's why we picked up that ground. And it's also an interesting target area. We're working on that in the background, and certainly we'll want to drill that as well. With respect to other acquisitions, I mean, we have on our property lots of target areas that will keep us busy for many months. So an acquisition is certainly not at the forefront of our mind, but having said that, we always have our eyes open and are opportunistic. And if we see something interesting, we'll certainly look at it. Mm-hmm. And your second part was, I believe, about North America. Mm-hmm. And I'd say our strategy is porphyry exploration in North America. We have MPD in southern BC, and our other project is Arizona. So that's certainly our main focus.
And just one last question. You mentioned that Teck Resources was a major shareholder. Have you ever considered any sort of like joint ventures?
Well, our preference is certainly to hold on to 100% of our property. Mm-hmm. That's why we invited Teck in as a shareholder on the corporate level. They acquired 9.9% of our share capital, and we can that way hold on to 100% of the project.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for that, Claudia, and we'll hope be coming back to Claudia later on in the show. But I'd now like to move on to our second mining update. And our second mining update, I'm going to invite him to go and share the slides on his screen now. It's from Brian Booth. Brian Booth brings more than 30 years of experience in the mineral exploration throughout Canada, Europe, and Southeast Asia. Brian was previously CEO and board member of Pembroke Copper Corp, where he delivered the copper resource at Picoy in Peru. He's currently president and CEO of Element 29 Resources. Brian, would you like us to give us a 3-minute summary as to where Element 29 are at the moment?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. And thanks everyone for participating in this great event. Yeah, Element 29 is exciting new project for me and for the market. You know, I've been working in Peru for over 12 years with Pembroke Mining Private, which was a private company funded by Chinalco Resources out of China, where we developed a porphyry through to engineering and optimization studies over the last number of years. And what really attracted me to E29 is that the two projects that we have that are our main focus are brand new to the market. One is a new discovery. It's only about 5 years old. It was in a private company, which was our founding company, Globetrotter Resources. And we are spinning those two projects out to the company, to the market through E29. The second project is our Florida Cobra project, which is a historic resource. This was owned by a private family for 30 years, so it wasn't available to a lot of modern exploration, but it was drilled in the 1990s by Phelps Dodge Resources, and they outlined a copper enrichment resource, which is very close to surface, easy for a leach project that will be advancing, you know, over the next few years. So as I mentioned, here's the two photos. You can see Florida Cobra in the background. What's really attractive about these two projects is there's great infrastructure. They're in existing copper belts. So there's a lot of mining around us. So Florida Cobra, for example, Cerro Verde, as you can see in the inset, is close by, and you know, it is sandwiched in between two producing mines. So great location, easy access from Arequipa on the paved road. So you're only an hour and 20 minutes away, and low elevation, water opportunities, lots of power opportunities. So a great infrastructure location here. And Alida brings not only the, you know, it's a new discovery, it's a very large porphyry system that we're just starting to get going, but we do have 18 holes. You know, a lot of these, the work done on these projects were done privately. And so we then had enough work to take them to the market and explain the value to the market. Share structure is very tight. We're well financed to achieve our milestones this year that I'll talk about in terms of getting our maiden resources on both. So I'll start with Florida Cobra. You can see where it's located in the southern copper Peru belt. The main target here is the Candelaria historic resource, 57 million tons of 0.67 enrichment again. So we'll be moving that through to PEA next year once we drill this and bring it to a 43-101 resource from a historic resource. But we also have a second large porphyry target called Atravesado. It's a 1 by 1 kilometer target, well mineralized with secondary copper mineralization at surface. It has big potential, and there's still a lot of sulfide potential below the enrichment potential that we have here for a leach project as we go forward. So again, great location, low elevation. Costs for capital are going to be very modest. So that's what makes this very attractive as we go forward in an established belt, and a lot of the land here. And just from an ESG standpoint, we have a great relationship with the One community, and they're very experienced dealing with mining companies, having dealt with Freeport and others and Nexa over the years. So the next project, this is actually the first project that we'll be drilling. We have our permit. We just received it a couple of weeks ago. This is Alida. This was discovered by Globetrotter, which is our predecessor company. It's a very large system, 2 by 2 kilometer system with 5 porphyry centers, only one of which has been drilled to the central part. And it already has 6 or 7 500-meter intersections of around 0.6% copper equivalent. So great opportunity, wide open at depth, open to the on strike. So a lot of opportunity there to get our maiden resource done this year on the central zone as we start to build pads away to the other targets. And targets 2 and 3 have.
Fantastic. Let's go. Yeah.
So excuse me, can I just ask the person who's unmuted themselves to mute themselves, please?
So it has enrichment potential in target 2 and 3. So we'll be looking for higher grade potential there as we start to build the pads onto those targets for further drilling as we go in. So we're well funded to do both projects and reach our milestones for this year, which are a main resource at Alita before year end, and then a resource.
How much do I get into that?
Yeah, so our milestones for this year, first of all, you know, in the next few weeks, the drill will be turning, and then we're going to have a second drill come on to the Alita project to tighten up the drilling. Actually, we have an envelope of mineralization there that shows that we have the potential for 500 million tons. We're going to, and that's in our tech report. And so we're going to tighten up the drilling, which is a little bit wide spacing there, and add some additional drilling to where it's wide open in various directions and at depth. Come up with our maiden resource at year end, and then we'll have the Florida Cobra resource, where we will modernize that historic resource for that enrichment zone, and then in 2022 proceed to the PEA. All well funded for all of that work. So it's going to be exciting times of drill results and then those two resources. Thank you.
Great. I'm going to dive in with the first question. A number of people have actually gone and posted this question. It's to do with obviously the Peruvian election. So please comment on the likely change in the Peruvian government to a left-leaning president, Castillo, who will be under pressure, like in Chile, to revamp the royalty scheme in a detrimental way to new brining projects without a tax stability agreement.
Right. Well, as I mentioned, I've been working in Peru for over 12 years, and I've worked with a number of different government administrations during that time. And some of them, left-leaning, some of them centrist. And, the overall view is that, there's a Congress and everything to work out the details. But, really, they've been very good to work with, all levels of government, whether they're more socialist, left-leaning versus centrist. So we don't anticipate in the long run that there's going to be any really significant changes to the mining aspects. And the mining community in Peru is very important to the country. So, my experience there is that I've always been able to work with whatever administration is in place very successfly in getting our permits and working through the various aspects. And the community aspects as well have been always very supportive in the areas where we're working. So we don't anticipate any significant changes to the projects and the day-to-day for the time being.
Yeah, I've been investing in emerging markets for the last 30 years. And one very simple fact that I can share with all of your listeners is that you are usually paid for the political risk. In other terms, people exaggerate the risk. It's just like when we watch TV and we see what's happening in India with COVID. You believe that if you're going to land in Delhi, you're going to be dead in 24 hours. Is that true? Of course not. So there's an amplification of the risk. And the reality is that you're more than compensated by the share price. The second thing I'd like to add is that we're at the beginning of a bull market in copper. And at the beginning of bull markets, people are a bit afraid. So they don't want to add to the commodity risk. They don't want to add a political risk. As the bull market progresses, then people are much, much less scared of going to unusual jurisdictions. So today, nobody wants to invest in Peru, nobody wants to invest in Congo, but you'll see that the discount of these countries will go down. Personally, I went to Peru in 1991 with Mark Faber. There was the Sentido Luminoso blowing up CEOs, and there was cholera in Lima. It was a good time to buy. Today, you've had the bad news of this election. Nobody wants to touch Peru, so there's probably great opportunities there.
Do you have a question for Brian?
Yes, sure. Well, first of all, maybe you should talk about your great Globetrotter, because that's a very, very interesting private company that has a lot of knowledge, and you come from a fantastic lineage. Maybe you could expand on that.
Sure. Well, Globetrotter Resources, much like Pembroke, where I worked, we worked side by side in the country and privately. And what the business model for them very simply was to be a project generator and identify opportunities, go out in the field, walk around, and they were able to discover the Alita porphyry by doing that. And then, getting to know, private families where there are opportunities as well, and spend the time and commit, to them and build up a relationship, they were able to acquire a deposit. So those two things, again, that's not what they do on a day-to-day basis. It's to take those through engineering and other more advanced studies. So that's why they were spun out into Element 29 to take those. They still have a whole list of other, lower level projects that are more green fields. And again, it's a great model where you go out and you take that risk capital, and then you find more advanced projects, and then you dividend those out to your shareholders, and then take those out to the market for capital raises that are needed, that are more difficult to do when you're private. But a great business model, worked well for their shareholders, and E29 is a great example of how that can work.
Your share price, your market cap is still pretty low, $40 million. Could you give us an idea of sort of the value proposition? How would you value both projects? And also, when are you going to come up with your maiden resource on Alita?
Yeah, so, if you look at, a number of other companies, it's really moving through those different milestones. We already know we have deposits here. It's a question of getting them through the 43-101 resources, and then taking them through the next level of engineering studies to get those different market cap improvements. And if you look at Marimaca and some of the others in Chile that are well into the $300 to $400 million market cap, ours, as you say, is fairly modest. Once we get those milestones, we anticipate getting those increases in market cap as we start to deliver on our milestones in the next year and a half. So it's a great entry point for us. We're right at our IPO price right now, which we IPO'd just in December. So there's a lot of upside there as we compare ourselves to some of our peers out there that already have delivered those resources.
So when is your maiden resource coming out?
At Alita, it'll come out in the fourth quarter of this year, once we finish this modest drilling program, because we already have a number of holes already drilled. We have all the core because it's a new deposit, and we've already initiated metallurgical work, so that's in the lab already. So we're starting to move forward into more advanced studies.
So here we're between friends and family. We're having a beer or a glass of wine. Could you give us an idea of how big this thing could be? I mean, if you're going to announce a maiden resource.
Well, if you look at, when I drilled off the Pacoy deposit, the system, it was about 1 kilometer by 1.2 kilometers in terms of its alteration signature. And we had about 900 million tons drilled off in a resource that we took through PEA, et cetera. To put it into perspective, Alita is a 2 by 2.3 kilometer system with multiple porphyry centers in it. So it has certainly billion ton potential if all of those are successful. So, and we can see the mineralization.
Your maiden resource is going to be really big, because in the copper space, these numbers are huge.
That's right. It's certainly a big system. It's because there's no cover. You can see all of the mineralization at surface, and we were so excited, the Globetrotter people, when they actually walked up onto it, because you can still do that in Peru. You can walk up to a porphyry that's untouched. So that's the exciting part. And the mineralization is sitting at surface and well exposed. There's no vegetation on top of the project. So again, great indications for growth on that project to a world-class project.
It's clear there are some emerging markets where it's easier, which have been underexplored. So it's easier to find something big, whereas other jurisdictions in Canada and the US, everything is being looked out with a magnifying glass. So it's more difficult.
Yeah, so I definitely sort of like encourage our sort of listeners to go and sort of like check out Brian's company, check out E29 Resources. Sounds a really, really exciting project. Let's move on to our next mining update, and I'll invite Tandy Schweitzer to go and put his slides up on the screen now. Just to give you a bit of a brief background, Andy is Director and CEO of Crown William Mining. Before that, I think you were President and CEO of Gulfstream Financial, if I understand correctly. So, Andy, over to you. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much. My name is Andy Schweitzer. As Andrew said, I'm the controlling shareholder and CEO of Crown William Mining. I'm going to take you through a slide presentation here. I hope you find it interesting. And thanks to the other sponsors and the people who are attending. So the asset is in Southern Ontario. It is a famously gold-endowed, contiguous, district-scale, 80,000-acre mining camp home to large systems previously unknown, kilometers long and kilometers deep, that host the possibility for multi-million-ounce production via surface extraction, sheltered from many risks, including climate, remoteness, geopolitical, aboriginal, infrastructure, environmental, etc. Access is perfect. Grades are eye-popping. We're privately owned, by the way. Right? Serious work has been done here. Reporting is completed on a good bit of it. Virtual data room is ready for inspection. We feel that this southeastern Ontario mining region has potential for tier 1 or tier 2 gold production based on new scientific research results. In 1994, 1998, 2004, and 2008, the Ontario Geological Survey reported on this in this region. In 2008, they made the following statement: that the gold deposits of Southern Ontario exhibit similarities with the gold mineralization in the Archean age Abitibi greenstone belt. Think greenstone, but with carbonates in place of wax. We began to look to see what's available, what controls gold mineralization in the region. We spoke to a lot of people. We worked with some good geologists. People were happy to dissuade us from going into this region. People like to give advice, because for 155 years, the accepted method of gold recovery in this region is to mine narrow vein gold underground. As I was often told, we know the gold is there, we know the grade is good, but you're forced to go underground, et cetera, et cetera. We were not dissuaded. And between 2008 and 2018, we accumulated 80,000 contiguous acres, now comprising over 1,500 claims, leases, and titles land. Until we consolidated the entire land package, which had never been done before, no single party had applied modern exploration technology to determine the extent and nature of the large mineralized systems found here. We would set about to get all the data we could find. We digitized, compiled, and interpreted more than a century worth of work. An estimated over $25 million in exploration had been expended here. And we have 266 assessment reports, 40 plus geophysical surveys, over 30,000 meters of drill core, mine plans, scoping studies, feasibility studies, metallurgical reports, etc., which had never been viewed from, let's say, a 30,000 foot altitude, so to speak. All this is based on the Ontario Geological Survey's statement that Archean lode gold style deposits in Abitibi style greenstone formations, similar to Timmins, Kirkland Lake, and Red Lake, are set here in this Grenville province in southeastern Ontario. Doesn't belong there, but yet there it is. So two major revelatory discoveries, I would say. One is that gold is mobilized into wall rock, up to 10 plus grams per ton, making surface deposits amenable to open pit removal. It's revelatory. It's a change in mining method. It's no longer necessary to chase narrow veins underground. Far simpler to operate and permit a quarry than an underground mine. And I'll show you what I mean. Until we took possession of these lands, the common method for sampling drill core was to only sample where they saw VG. So in entire core lengths, and the model in the upper left indicates what I'm talking about, in entire core lengths, they only sampled where they saw visible gold. If they encountered vein material and it didn't present visible gold, it didn't get sampled. We sampled 10% of the available drill core. And of that 10%, what we saw was very widely disseminated gold. So that represents the opportunity to extract open pit. The second important revelation is that present here are 4 large deep-seated systems associated with several mineralized trends within a contiguous mining camp that extends gold strike zones to 40 kilometers in length and a number of kilometers deep, we don't know. So 2 key conclusions. One is the possibility of major gold endowment, and the other is the opportunity potentially for multi-million ounce potential via surface deposits. As one geologist said, it's as if a section of northern Ontario slid down to southern Ontario at this point. Our location is critical. We're located spot between Toronto and Ottawa, 50 kilometers up from the town of Belleville, which is a resort community, right off the 401 expressway. We're located on Highway 62. So infrastructure is in place, water and power utilities are there. There's literally a McDonald's, a Tim Hortons, and a petrol station on the corner. All right. The suggestion is that production costs would be extremely low. There's not been a PEA done, but good people that we've worked with have expected a cash cost of production somewhere around $400 per ounce, all in sustaining somewhere under $500 per ounce. We control these lands 100%, no royalties have been issued. This is the last, potentially the last district scale greenstone hosted low gold mining camp in Canada that's still in private hands. In gold mining, we look for a number of factors that are key. Scale, grade, and access are among them. As I said, this is the largest land package in the mining district. Grade is very good. I'll show you grades in just a moment. There was a bulk sample done that showed 10.5 grams per ton, and access couldn't be better. Infrastructure is in place, good relationships with First Nations, no known environmental issues, 12-month field season. We're just 100 miles from Rochester, New York. It's a mining-friendly region. This map shows over 100 mineral extraction operations within a 60-mile radius, right? Mining and Lands Commissioner supports, again, it's a mining-friendly region. And so it puts the question of, how is this possible? How have I not heard of this before? Why is no one else working in this area? How are you able to capture the entire mining region? And the fact is no one else wanted it, right? And so in 2018, I walked the floor of PDAC. I attracted 5 large and mid-tier mining companies. They came into the data room. They walked the property. They found VG on their own in exploration. And the answer that I got roundly was, you need to advance a project, but we would take this asset into inventory. Between 2018 and last May, just last month, I haven't been able to get anybody to go into the data room because they thought it sounded too good to be true. Wondering what would cause that to occur? The answer came from psychology, cognitive entrenchment, which is defined as the rigidity that encrusts sclerotic expertise. So 2 parts to this. Part number 1 is we've got about 12,000 meters of drill core in inventory that have already been drilled. And the first 10% that we drilled showed 100,000 ounces. So we feel that we can get potentially an 8 times increase in resource without drilling by sampling the balance of the core. Here are grades. The highest grade recorded at this first deposit was over 2,000 grams, right? That was not included in the 43101. However, the grades that you see here were included in the 43101. And as you can see, they're primarily 0.5 meter wide, right? Which is fine because, again, critical factor, gold has mobilized from these narrow veins into the surrounding wall rock. The veins are about 5 meters apart. So you've got this overwash, let's call it, of gold into wall rock at the shoulders of the veins. And so you end up with a very respectable grade. Now the cutoff, just to go back, the upside cutoff here was 71 grams. It might have been higher given the fact that we have 3 and 4 gram grades at this deposit. But just based on that conservative cap, 100,000 ounces at a 1.64 grams, or 92,000 ounces at a 1.64 gram. So again, it's 10% of the available core. We feel that when we when we sample the balance of the core, we'll get a content of not extrapolating 100%, but extrapolate 100% and discount by 20%, maybe 7, maybe 800,000 ounces there.
Sorry, I need to interject. I'm sort of quite keen to possibly go and like take some questions from the sort of floor. So I was wondering if at this stage I could bring in like Claude, because I know you've been to PDAC many times, and you presumably come across Crown William Mining. I wasn't sure, Claude, if you had any questions for Andy.
Can I just show one more slide? Sorry, just one more.
Okay,
right?
go ahead.
Right, that's this one. Right, so not just focus on the first deposit, but also grades across the balance of the 80,000 acres that's there. So, okay, sorry, Claude, please go ahead.
Well, look, somebody who can get 800,000 ounces of gold without drilling anything attracts my attention. Is your company quoted?
No.
Do you have
No, what we have is enormous wealth of data, right? We have 266 assessment reports. We've got a 43101 on that first deposit. I mean, we're very well documented on the representations that I'm making here, right? What was frustrating me, Claude, was that for 3 years, I couldn't get anybody to log into the data room. They just refused to accept. They said, how could you have this combination of features?
Andy, this is called a bull market. At the beginning of a bull market, nobody believes it. That's where we have the opportunity. And you'll see people will be knocking on your door in the very, very near future. Don't worry.
Well, they've started, Claude. I'm happy to tell you that somebody broke the ice in London, and then it began, and people are now in the data room, right? I'd like to get more, but this is phenomenal. I understand the industry. I mean, I've been in it for 15 years. Yeah.
What? Just going to one question for me, Andy. Why is like nobody else? Why are there no other miners working in the area?
Well, you know, again, it goes back to this cognitive entrenchment. I couldn't take banks and mining companies to take my presentation seriously. The conversation went like this. I say, we've made major discoveries. And they said, well, no, you haven't. I said, well, do you have any data to support that? They say, no. So I've got a lot of data. Would you like to come and have a look? They said, no, we wouldn't do that. I mean, one of the things that was a roadblock for us is people are sure that you can't get permitted there. And so they just wouldn't look at the project. You're not going to be able to get permitted. That was the statement that they made. You're not going to be able, right? There are currently, sorry, just to flip back to this one slide here in the middle, in 2000, there were 104 mineral extraction operations in this district. Do you think they got there without being permitted? But that's to answer your question. People just refuse to believe it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I think in the interest of time, we just need to sort of like move on to the sort of like final mining update of the show. But I certainly encourage you, if anyone's got any questions for Andy and Crown William Mining, it's a really interesting project, to post them into the chat box, and Andy, you can then obviously answer those questions there. A final update, and again, another really exciting project, is from Rana Vig, who has over 30 years of business experience, during which time he has helped to launch 5 business ventures in private industry. But Rana is now president and CEO of Blue Lagoon Resources. Why did you move into mining, and can you give us your 3-minute update?
Sure. I was invited at a very successful entrepreneur worth well over $300 million at the time, about 10 years ago, to get out of my private world and come into the exciting world of the capital markets. And I got involved. I thought, hey, I was looking for a change. That was 2008 and 2009 had just happened, and I thought I was looking for a change. And I got involved in 2011 with him, put over $1 million into the mining sector. And lo and behold, about 6 months later, it was worth about $10,000. Thank you very much. And what Claude talked about, the bull market, I caught the other end of that bull market, so the opposite. So that was quite the entry. So that's how I got involved in mining.
We all have our scars. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, it's okay. I've learned a lot in those years, and took over a couple of mining companies. You know, I'm not a mining engineer or a geologist, but I'm an entrepreneur. I put a number of companies together that have been very, very successful, trade in market caps of several $billion. And I've come back now to mining and with this Blue Lagoon Resources that I launched in 2019, because like Claude, I believe that we are in the beginning of the commodity super cycle. I saw that early and I decided to launch. Everybody thought, by the way, in 2019 I was crazy, but I think I can prove them wrong. So so Blue Lagoon Resources, we launched that a couple of years ago, and then found a project last year, which I'm going to talk about, called Dome Mountain. It's very intriguing. There were three key things as an entrepreneur that really interested me, and if my technical team supported it, I thought we could do a really great deal, which we did. There's three key aspects to this project. Number one, it's near production, and I hear a lot of these near production stories, but so I kind of dismissed it in the beginning. But when we looked into it very carefully, it actually was near production. It has all the permits in place. As some of you may know, it takes 20 years to get a mining permit in British Columbia, the average being 14. This one already had a mining permit, had environmental permits, the affluent permits, everything was in place. The only thing that happened was the previous owners just got a little too old. They were 83 years old and not in the best of health, so they needed an exit. And along we came and picked it out. They spent $28 million in the last dozen years, all in development, infrastructure, and permitting. And they just needed $2 more million to finish it off, to get it into production, which we've deployed. We finished everything that's required. We're just doing the last final water treatment test, which actually started yesterday. Will be done within a week. After that, within 60 days, we expect to present everything to the ministry, and 120 days after that, we should be getting the green light to produce. It's not a big mine. It's 75,000 tons a year, a couple hundred tons a day. But that's the smallest part of the story. And as an entrepreneur, what I like is that it'll cash flow nicely for us to be able to take it into the second part of the story, which is the exploration. It's 19,000 hectares of very prospective ground. I'll show you share the screen here with you. This is by the way, we have over 7,000 tons of mineralized material in the mine, currently, that we finally got permission to take out. What you're looking at there is the first material that was shipped out 3 days ago. We sent out 6 trucks, another 4 went yesterday. So that's starting, and that should generate us about 2,500 plus ounces of gold. And it's going to show the market that we're executing, as well as bring money back into the treasury. So that's the number one, is that it's near production. We expect to make a decision here later this year. The second part of it is the exploration play. So what you're looking at here is our main Boulder vein. We have a nice little starter resource here, a couple 100,000 ounces. It's indicated and inferred. It's nice high grade. It's about 12 grams a ton. We have a clear path to 1 million plus ounces. And how I can say that is because if you look to the left here, this dotted line, this is 800 meters of drilling that was done back in 2016. And if you look at the cross section, this is the area I'm talking about. You can see it's all drilled out, all these drill holes in here. And the only reason, of course, that it doesn't look like this, the resource, is because not enough drilling. So that's our low hanging fruit. The minute we go in there and we drill that out, we can easily double our resource to 400 to 500 ounces. And then the depth, it was never drilled to depth in 160, 70, 180 meters. It's open at depth. If you look at the handful of holes that we do have that was drilled, it's all high grade mineralization. You can see here, we went in there and we went deeper. We went to the deepest point, 338 meters. We hit over 3 meters of almost 18 grams gold and 70 grams silver. So we know that we can add significant ounces to the depth. And then there's the east. We put some drill holes there, again, hit on the holes, high grade mineralization. And when we did our first ever airborne mag survey on this property, we identified this very interesting mag feature. It looks like it's a continuation of that vein. So that's our clear path, going to the west, going to the deep, going to the east. That's a clear path to we believe, to 1 million plus ounces. So we have near-term production this year to be able to get into cash flow. We have a million ounce pathway. And then the last piece of it is there's 19,000 hectares. Everything I talked about is in less than 10% of the property. The rest of the property has 15 other high grade veins around that mine area, and then the rest of the property is very, very prospective as well. Just to share one of them with you, this is a free gold. This is one of the veins. You can see our main vein down here, the boulder. This is free gold.
Sorry, Rana. I think your screen may have got stuck because it seems to have got stuck on a Word document.
Okay, no worries. I can talk through it.
Yeah,
anyways, the point I'm making is that it's highly prospective. We're near term, producer. We got a pathway to 1 million plus ounces, and we got this vast property that when we flew for the first time ever, that completely just lit up. Our everybody was scratching their head thinking, how come nobody's seen this before? And basically because it was in private hands, and those people, there were over 1,200 shareholders. They were focused on strictly getting it into production and paying dividends, which makes sense for a private company. So that's our story. We have a nice treasury still after deploying all that. We still have over $2.5 million in treasury. I have no debt. We've got $5 million worth of in the money warrants that are starting to trickle in. And I'm personally vested. I've got 5% roughly of the company. I've written checks for almost $500,000 personally. Me and my family have done about $2.2 million into the company so far at much higher prices. And we believe we're undervalued and have a long ways to go, and embarked on a 20,000 meter drill program about 3 months ago that we're currently deploying right now.
Yeah. Okay.
One of my mentors was Guy Borel. He was one of the best stock pickers in the world. He was managing one of the biggest funds in the world for Société Générale in the gold space. And his mantra was to find a company which had that could produce assets, which could produce some cash flow, and with that cash flow to have a free call on the exploration. So that would fit the bill. But could you, Rana, tell us a little more precisely what type of cash flow you can get? What type of how many ounces do you think you can produce? What type of cash flow does that give you per year? And how? And then you're telling us you could have a million ounces. So of course, since your market cap is so low, $50 million with a tight share structure, 80 million shares. If you have 1 million ounces, then $50 million is nothing. So what would it take in terms of cost to prove that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I'm not saying we have 1 million ounces today. I'm saying we have a clear path to 1 million ounces based on the data that supports us, right?
So the question is, what do you need to do to prove it?
We need to drill, right? We need to drill, right? And we need to do something like somewhere around 25 million or so, probably to close to 25 to 30 million dollars is what I'll do it. Is in our estimation. But I'm not chasing that, Claude. From an entrepreneur's perspective, I already know that's there. What I want to do is, I believe this is a very highly prospective property, and I want to take that cash flow that we expect here, not only from this mineralized material that we're sending out right now to the mill, but as the warrant money comes in, as we go into production, I'm going to deploy that back into it, and we feel that we will easily, from that cash flow, be able to do somewhere around 40,000 meters a year without having to go back to the market. So I'm the public markets, I don't believe are going to be super excited for me to go drill, do infill drilling and keep increasing the resource. What I'm more interested in is to show everybody that we're sitting on something very significant here with the other veins, plus that massive property area that we've got that we're starting to drill. We actually just started drilling those areas 3 days ago.
Question for myself. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you work with the local indigenous peoples?
Yeah, we have a great relationship with them. In fact, half of our staff is from the First Nations. We're one of the things that I'm very, very careful about is being very, very respectful to everyone within the area. I treat it as like we're guests, not only of the town, but of the people in the area. So we have a great relationship, and we make sure that we are creating lots of employment and long-term opportunities for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And I'd probably like to ask like a related question to the other three mining panelists as well. I'll probably just ask a slightly different question, like what are your ESG credentials? I'd probably like to ask that first to Andy Schweitzer of Crown William Mining.
Sorry, I was muted. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. We were just talking about sort of like ESG credentials, and Rana talked about how Blue Lagoon Resources are working tremendous work with local indigenous peoples. I was just wondering, what are Crown William Mining's ESG credentials?
Well, we're at the stage now where we're forming good relationships with the local native band, right? First Nations band, and what we're looking for is capital support, operational support, and management support. right? So we're still at the formative stages of that. We're sitting on a major asset. We need to take it forward.
Brian, what are Element 29's ESG credentials?
Yeah, we recognize the importance of this a long time ago, and we've been working really well with the communities in Peru. While we were private, we had a 5-year agreement with the local community for employment. We get involved in school supplies and dentists, doctors, etc., to help the community any way that we can. That's engaging with them. We keep them informed. We have a dedicated people to dealing with the community and making sure that they understand, and we answer questions that come up on a regular basis. When we're active drilling, we have people living in the community and engaging with them. We have a lot of hires that we have out of the community in both projects that will be going forward. And on top of that, we manage all of our projects very cleanly. We look after water, we look after all of the equipment that we're having, and try to find ways to minimize our footprint for the time being on the project area.
And Claudia, what are Kodiak Copper's ESG credentials?
Well, our project MPD is in British Columbia, and we like Canada and British Columbia because already at the start, the environmental protection and community engagement ranks very highly. We certainly at Kodiak exceed what we're required to do. We do a lot of environmental monitoring, water measuring, wildlife monitoring, all those sorts of things. We liaise with 21st First Nations in the area. Some of them are involved more closely, others we just keep informed. We've hired First Nations staff. We work with First Nations contractors, and these relationships are crucially important. There are many mines in history that didn't get to fruition because they were opposed by local communities. And to the contrary, there are also mines that did get into production because they had so much support from the local communities and First Nations. And that's the route we certainly want to go.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, making a comment on ESG, Andrew?
Yeah, sure. Please do, Claude.
Okay, well, look, I live in Switzerland, and the Swiss banks manage huge amounts of money, and they have these gigantic, the most successful funds for the last couple of years have been ESG funds. So the marketing there has been fantastic. These funds are gigantic. So basically every single private investor is loaded with ESG funds. I can tell you that they have the name ESG, but what's inside is massively overvalued companies and technology and all that. And you will do much better investing in good mining companies which have low valuation, good assets, and who have a decent record on ESG rather than these silly ESG fashionable funds.
Well, certainly there's certainly obviously ESG is appearing a lot in the sort of news of these days, and certainly I think we probably may see it around for around for some time to come, and obviously a lot of these sort of funds, I guess, as part of the green revolution that we're actually seeing. Anyway, but I think we're now up to the sort of top of the hour, so it's been a really lively discussion. Thank you for some really great sort of presentations. So a big thank you to our guests, big thank you to our investor guest, Claude BJ. Big thank you to our sponsors, Element 29 Resources, Kodiak Copper, Crown William Mining, and Blue Lagoon Resources, as well as our media partners, Resource Global Network. We'll be back again next week with, I think, about five shows as part of our Minds and Money online global show. It's not too late to register if you are interested in coming along to that event. And in the meantime, I hope you have a good rest of the day, and thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.